So, welcome to Chapter 13. Chapter 13, I'm gonna call the first of two exam sort of chapters in this game. Like, it was really difficult to do this one well. Like, it was a big puzzle to have to solve. This is actually one of my favorite chapters in the game, but definitely difficult. So, fortunately, in order to deal with a difficult chapter, the game gives us one really important piece of equipment to buy, and that's the Booster 2. Which obviously is the upgrade to the booster. It gives you a +2 of movement instead of a +1. So we're going to buy 3 of them just right away. One's going to go to Janie, one's going to go to Raphael, and the last one's going to go to Yamato. We're also going to buy a missiles ×3, which is just a sort of a generic, what's called generic cannon upgrade for Meteor. It actually gives him a negative HP modifier, but that never really comes up. At least not until later when we replace it. But that's going to be equally as important as these booster 2s in order to beating Chapter 13 properly. I say properly, I mean not properly at all, because we're gonna kind of cheat in this one. On the card side of things, really we're just gonna bring up a whole bunch of combat cards with this. I mentioned that we're kind of starting to fall behind in terms of general strength, so we really need all the firepower we can get, especially in this one, because the premise here is that we're running away from Jagard, and he outflanks us so hard that not only is he here to fight us, but he brought all 3 of the other generals, and then they all brought these cronies with them, which are basically like them. So we're fighting basically 8 fucking bosses in this chapter, so we really need all those combat cards in order to keep up with them. And by keep up, I mean kill them before they can kill us, because they can definitely like 2-shot everyone on our team, at least. So we start this chapter by deploying everyone in this like really odd-looking particular formation, and below us, as you can see here, there's Jagard, Elisha, a Centipede, and a Moth. And if you recall, Centipedes have anti-air guns, and the Moths have anti-ground guns. So it should be really obvious why this is a fucking dangerous combination to be fighting. On the left side, there's Heidel and another cockroach. And we're going to leave that entire left side to Akane. She's got the easiest job of anyone in this map, so we're going to have her kill those 2 and then pick up a capsule, and that's it. The top is Misaki and another spider, and they're also not really a threat. But we need to like do some really odd things with them in order to like sort of abuse this chapter. And we sent Janie straight up, as far up as she can get off turn 2 actually. And she deployed those tetras in a very particular formation. Those will actually serve 2 purposes. But for right now, it's just gonna separate her from the spiders. And we also put Yamato up there using grasshopping. So now they're gonna come attack him instead of Janie, which is what we want. So I'm gonna actually ignore this enemy phase and start talking about what's gonna happen at the end of this turn. So we're gonna get some allied reinforcements come from the top of the map. In fact, we're gonna get fucking 10 units of allied reinforcements. Ganbei and Hiroto, those guys we saw in a cutscene last chapter, they show up. Ganbei pilots a cicada, and Hiroto pilots a grasshopper, and they bring along 4 ants and 4 mosquitoes to help us out, which is an absurd amount of units. And the thing about these guys is they really suck. Like, they do actually help us out in this chapter, but that's only because I get bad RNG. They have no business helping us out. They're bad. And we're actually going to be fighting against them and their shitty AI as much as we're going to be fighting against the enemies of this chapter. And I'll talk more about that in a bit. First, gotta talk about the way we're going to deal with Jagard and Elisha and their buddies. So we're just going to kill them just normally with Bee Sting and Beetle Horn and whatnot, and it's going to look really simple, but it's not. It's actually really complicated, and I can't even really explain it properly. So in this chapter there's the 4 generals, and they actually all have their own cards. They all have Dragonfly Fury cards and Bagworm Shell cards, which is new. So with Dragonfly Fury, basically that means that they can now 1-hit KO anyone in our team instead of 2-hit KO them, which is bad, and we need to basically take these guys out priority number 1. The problem is that they have these Bagworm Shell cards, and those are cards that you use on the enemy phase, and it doubles your defense, and you defend. And that is really bad, because basically means they can tank any hit, and then just one-shot us back, which is awful. But as you just saw, Blade? Jagard didn't actually use his Bagworm Shell card, even though I just said that he had one, and that's because I'm not lying. He just didn't use it, and we kind of manipulate him into not using it. I don't actually know how this fucking works, but I know it's something to do with like who we've killed so far and what our positions are, but somehow we manipulate Elisha and Jagard into just not using the background shell cards, and we can kill them no problem. And the reason we want to do that is because, like, if you use a combat card, you do that either the curling minigame for the cannon ones or the rapid tapper ones for everything else. And if the enemy uses it, it's the same thing. But if you, sorry, I guess if the enemy uses a defensive card, you do like the fly swatting thing. But if you and the enemy both use a card in the same combat, you do a completely different minigame where you have to like mash more buttons than your opponent. And the AI is really good at this minigame. And if you lose it, it basically nullifies your card. So we absolutely cannot afford to lose the minigame. And in order to do that best, we should just avoid the minigame completely. So that's why we wanted to do this in the first place. Okay, that took a while. I need to start explaining this now. So I guess to start with, there's a thing in this map where we absolutely cannot have our allies go right. It would ruin everything. And I'll get into that later, but we need them to go left. The problem is that they really want to go right by default because they'd rather fight all these weak butterflies and stuff than they would rather fight Misaki and her spider. So we need to manipulate them somehow into going left. And how we do that is we had Yamato just instantly take out the generic spider, took him right out of the picture, and then we had Tsubasa use Dragonfly Fury to bring Misaki down into like middling health. So now they would rather fight Misaki, who's wounded, and they all bunch up on the left side. And that tri-tetra I placed doesn't really make sense. The 3 tetras I placed, the tri-tetra, now like funnel them into this one square. Because they only have like a 1 square path to get to Misaki, so they're all gonna bunch up there and do as little as possible, which is exactly what we want them to do. Okay, so I want to talk about the gimmick of this map and our really long workaround. So come chapter 5, there'll be a short cutscene where everyone's like, man, we're fighting all these generals. This is really scary, guys. We need to figure out another way out of this, even though we're actually totally winning at this point. And our victory conditions will actually update, and it'll become kill everything like normal, or survive until the end of turn 10, and come the end of turn 10, the chapter just ends. And I guess how we're doing this is like, we're using the Origin and Doro's machinery or whatever, and we're doing some sciencey bullshit where we just like actually just teleport the fuck out of here. Like we just leave, like blink the fuck out. And we don't want to survive to the end of turn 10 because that's a lot of turns, and obviously we don't want that. The problem is that the developers wrote the story, so it doesn't actually make sense if we don't survive to the end of turn 10 and then teleport out. So they made this chapter like purposefully impossible to beat within 10 turns. And that's bad for us. Fortunately, we can actually beat the system, and that's why we have Janie doing this big, like, bizarre adventure all the way across the wall, around the wall in the middle, and she spider-threaded Minoru to her. So the main problem of this chapter is this colony that's way the fuck off to the right side in the middle of nowhere. We can kill all these generals, no problem. It's not a big deal. The problem is that colony, because we need to kill that colony in order to finish the map within, like, quote-unquote finish the map within 10 turns. But that colony, inside that colony, there are 2 butterflies, 2 fireflies, and 2 dragonflies, which are like all really terrible enemies to fight. And if we get close to that colony, it'll start putting dudes out. So in order to beat all those enemies, we have to A, get over there, and then B, actually fight all that shit. And we don't have time for that. So we have to destroy this colony before it puts out dudes. And I don't think it's come up yet, but if you destroy a snail or a colony before it deploys things, everything inside it gets instantly destroyed. So if we can do that, great. And it just so happens that there is 1 square in the middle here where Minoru was just moving to that's exactly 8 squares away from this colony. And we upgraded Minoru to the missiles, which has a 3 to 5 range, and then Ladybug also has an inherent +1 range, so it's now at 6. So now we can just have Genie use Ladybug Luck on Minoru, and he can actually take out this colony with Mantis Touch, which is amazing. The problem that we run into then is that there's this thing in this game where, like, if I was to attack that bottom butterfly, or at least move into its range, it would come and attack me. It's like aggroed, so to speak. And then the Ladybug at the top of the map is also now aggroed, and that's pretty common in this game. The thing about this chapter in particular is that the aggro for those butterflies and the aggro for that colony are actually tied together. So if I ever move into the range of those butterflies, the colony will start putting up dudes, and then we're fucked. So we have to get Mino to that spot without going into the butterflies range, which is also why we need to have our allies stay to the left instead of go to the right, because then they would fuck up everything. But we managed to do that by having Janie fly all the way around, and now Mino's in the position, and he can take out that colony. And now, since we have booster 2s, we can actually just park Raphael and Yamato right outside the butterflies range, and then just have them walk in and kill them, which is awesome. So that problem is also solved. So the next thing I guess we should talk about in this chapter are the capsules. There are two. The one on the left side has the Cicada Song card in it, which I alluded to way back in chapter 11, and we do need that. And fortunately, Akane's got plenty of time just to pick it up. She's actually already done her job. On the right side, we actually deliberately avoid that capsule. It has the Cricket Song card in it, which is the healing card we've had since chapter 3, and we don't need a second copy of it, so we're free to ignore it. One other cool thing, it's pretty stupid actually. One other thing about this chapter is the way they like downgraded it for easy mode. So they got rid of some guys like I said they would, but they also did some weird stuff with stats. So I think right now Misaki has 6 defense and 106 speed. And I'm pretty sure Tsubasa had like over 20 defense when she came in chapter 1, to put it into perspective for you. I'm not really sure why they did that, but it lets these ants like actually kill her, which is convenient because she doesn't want to cooperate and we have to rely on them. They also gave Alicia like a machine gun, which is the gun that Yamato and Yui and Shoya came with. Like even Tsubasa had a better gun to start with. And I guess they gave it to her because she can already one-hit KO everyone on our team with Dragonfly Fury anyway, but I don't know, it looks really stupid. Like, even the generic mob is outfitted properly, it's just Alicia. And I guess all I've left to talk about now is the Locust and the Cicada. So the Cicada's kind of got bad stats, that's Ganbei's drone, but it's really useful just by the virtue of it having 6 movement and flight, so that's pretty awesome. And then it also has anti-air guns, and making it the only anti-air unit in the game, and that's really going to be really useful later on. He's going to be used for some very specific things that only he can really do. The Locust, on the other hand, basically stripped the worst fucking unit in the game. Like, it's unsalvageable how bad it is. It's got just really awful stats all across the board. And I guess, like his gimmick is that after he attacks, he can take another move action. And I guess that's how the developers justified giving him just terrible stats. Like, you can't really use him properly for anything. We use every single ally unit in this game at least once, except for 3. And Hirono's one of them because he's so bad, but the other 2 are just because they come too late to have a purpose. He's the only one that just gets the shaft because he's ass. But yeah, that was chapter 13. I spent a long time working on this one, and I'm really happy with the way it came out. That's why it's one of my favorite chapters in the game. Fortunately, chapter 14 is like the polar opposite of this chapter, so I'll talk to you guys then.